Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. Previously, Gardos had managed to take control of Naracavella and launched an all-out attack on the island. Valterra decides to let Kojo handle the situation and things start to look dire. Thanks to some assistance from Sayaka, they defeat Gardos and move on from there only to find themselves tangled with a girl named Canon. The story continues as thanks to some of Kojo's friends, Canon's cats find a home to stay, but Himeragi decides to keep one for herself. Natsuki sees this ordeal and warns them about the animal rule again. In exchange for overlooking the situation, she asks Kojo to join her later that night. Natsuki and Astarte are donning a yukata and invited Kojo to accompany them to a festival. Naturally, Himeragi is there as well, and Natsuki questions why she felt the need to dress formally. They then get to the more serious business as Natsuki explains the recent minor disasters happening all around the town thanks to some people with the ability to fly. She explains that these are still humans in light of the fifth victim that they had found. However, something called possession masks was giving them enhanced magical and physical abilities. Basically, she wants her to be out in the night, monitor the area, and shoot down anyone who looks suspicious. He does get a clear warning to avoid killing anyone. It doesn't take long for the perpetrators to show up, and they use Natsuki's shifting magic to get right to them. They don't waste time and start to fight against two angel-like beings. Natsuki warns Kojo to fight seriously or it could be fatal. Just when one of these creatures was about to attack Kojo, the other one tackles her. She starts to batter her only to have her own mask broken, at which point Kojo and Himeragi realize that it was none other than Canon. They call out to her, but Canon keeps on punching and starts to suck blood from the other angel that is no longer moving. She manages to fly away, leaving them wondering what that was about. To find some answers, they head to the Kanase's head office itself, hoping to talk with their father in person. The secretary, Beatrice Basler, tells them that no one from the Kanase family is available for them to talk to, but still offers them a detour to the research facility. They board a private plane and Himeragi requires comforting from Kojo as she isn't used to heights. They suspect that Canon's dad has something to do with the possession mask, the thing that has been turning normal humans into supposed angels. The pilot leaves them on an island in the middle of nowhere and doesn't even tell them if Canon and her father were there. They soon realize that it might have been a trick to get them there, basically leaving them to fend for themselves in an unknown situation. After a little exploration, they do find some concrete domes just lying around, and signs of a recent gunfight. Back at the abandoned church, Sayaka is leading her own investigation of Canon. She comes across Yaze and asks him whose side he was on. He decides to strike a deal with her and asks her to keep his identity a secret in exchange for information on Kojo's whereabouts. Before they can get to the point, Asagi and Nagisa come to the church as well, where Sayaka and Asagi immediately start to get aggressive with each other. Back on the island, Kojo tries to use his familiar's electric powers to fry some fish from the ocean, but to no avail. Due to this, he is stuck having to eat the dinner Himeragi prepared, all of which is made up of coconut. Despite the lack of variety, he still enjoys her food and reminds her of some moments with Asagi. They talk about hoping that they will be able to find Canon and save her, but not very positive about being rescued from this deserted island. Meanwhile, Yaze had already given Asagi the information she needed, and it doesn't take long for her to put those pieces together and find out just where Kojo was stuck. Asagi and Sayaka start to argue once again over whose responsibility it was to save Kojo, but decide to find common ground until they get to him. Sayaka also explains that she wants to see Canon because of Princess Folia, the same person that Kojo came across when he was taking a night stroll while looking for Himeragi. He sees her for a moment and starts to bleed instantly over her fairness, but she disappears in time before his instincts kick in. Himeragi, who was also taking a bath, points her spear at him and tells him not to look back as she is undressed. He explains that he saw a girl similar to Kanase, but with a much more mature build to her. She decides to believe him as there was nothing else they could do on the island anyway. They head deeper into the woods trying to find the Folia, but see a Magus craft boat in the distance, which seems to have been searching for someone. The boat instantly detects the two of them and a bunch of soldiers start to shoot. They do manage to fend off some of them without causing much damage, but quickly find themselves surrounded. Kojo thinks of using his familiar, but then the soldiers get shot down by a person above. The Folia reveals herself and is surprised to know that Kojo doesn't know her. She points out that those soldiers were actually machines that were sent there to capture her. They don't get to talk much with her as more machines begin to flood the island shore. This time, Kojo finds a lot of open space and uses his familiar to make quick work of the soldiers. They again ask her to fully introduce herself, and she clarifies that she is the eldest princess of Aldesia. Elsewhere, Beatrice, a so-called secretary, is in a research facility where Canon is lying unconscious and being experimented on. Canon's own father was the one studying his daughter, as she was the only one who survived the whole possession mask transformation. He tells Beatrice that Canon was able to survive thanks to her illegitimacy, as they hint that she has royal blood inside of her. Beatrice informs him that the Fourth Progenitor has been captured, and they even have their hands on the Sword Shaman from the Lion King organization. The doctor is positive about this and asks them to make plans to end the progenitor as quickly as they can, since he would prove to be a great catalyst for the final evolution of Canon. All the while, Canon had been subconsciously hearing their conversation and starts to remember Kojo, even calling him out as Big Brother. Folia starts trying to mess with them a little before explaining her situation. She clarifies that being from the royal family makes her a target. Kanase Kensei of Magus Craft was apparently a court in the royal family and knows that royal blood is necessary for most of his magic-related research. When asked about why she had such an uncanny resemblance with Canon, Folia reveals that Canon's real father is her grandfather. Since Canon is an illegitimate child, her relationship with Folia is that of an aunt and niece. Kojo tells her that Canon had been turned into a violent creature, which Folia explains is an angel foe, an artificial angel created to be a higher being. They then see yet another similar boat heading towards their way, but this time a white flag is waved indicating they mean no harm. Kensei is there in person along with Beatrice and casually explains his goals and ambitions of using Canon as a foundation to create more angel foe. Naturally, Kojo and the party refuse all their propositions and have no interest in surrendering without a fight. Beatrice then activates Canon, who had been kept in cold storage and treated like a complete weapon. She feels more than excited to use Canon to kill Kojo, and even intends to use that fact to market more angel foe, with their strength to defeat even the strongest vampires. Himeragi hears enough of this and decides to engage first, swinging her spear right at Canon, who has now spread her wings and is ready to fight. Her attacks have no effect and she gets deflected back. After that, Beatrice takes it upon herself to go head first against Himeragi, whereas Folia is set to fight another one of Kensei's demon goons. While all of this is happening, Canon, who is basically a tool at this point, spreads all of her wings, summoning eyes inside of them, and lets out a big shrill. She immediately shoots a bunch of energy blasts towards Kojo, making it clear that he is the prime target. He tries to fight her nonetheless, but gets shot in the chest as Kensei tells him that nothing from this world can harm her. Canon lives in a dimension of her own. However, Canon begins to lose control even more, summoning an actual blizzard, putting Kensei on notice as they flee, unable to control their own creation. Sayaka and Natsuki, on the other hand, sneak their way into a Magus Craft cargo boat and notice the huge tower of ice created by Canon. Himeragi, along with Folia, is trapped inside the ice structure, but is saved thanks to a barrier. Kojo is still unconscious after being defeated by Canon with the blade stuck deep in his chest. Folia then points out that neither she nor Himeragi can touch the blade, meaning Kojo's wound cannot be healed for the moment. She does offer a solution, explaining there could be a familiar inside of him that would be capable of defeating the angel foe. The only way to do this is via arousal, and Folia begins to disrobe. She attempts to kiss him, but Himeragi gets in the way, offering to do it herself, pointing out that it's her job as his observer. She cuts herself and sucks out her own blood. She then pours the blood into Kojo's mouth, helping him drink it while he lies unconscious. Much to their prediction, Kojo wakes up and begins to bury his fangs in Himeragi's neck, completely taken over by his vampiric urges. Thanks to her blood, his wound starts to heal, but he sucks out more than she could bear, and Himeragi passes out. His waking up is still not enough because the familiar inside him remains dormant. As such, Folia volunteers her blood as well, hoping that potent royal blood would surely give him the boost that he needs. Shortly after, everyone is awake and ready as they break out of the ice tower, coming face to face with Kensei once again. Kensei explains that he wasn't her actual father, and that Canon was more precious, being the final memory of his long-dead sister. He uses this as his reasoning for her transformation, which he sees as a gift. Their conversation is cut short by Beatrice, who makes it clear that she isn't there for the negotiations. She blatantly admits her betrayal to Kensei with more angel foe, revealing that she was making clones behind Kensei's back. Kojo decides that he has heard enough of their sick and evil plan and tells them to shut up. Yet again, the other demon, Lo, takes his fight to Folia, and Beatrice meets Himeragi in a rematch. It doesn't take long for either of them to quickly take down the villains, and Beatrice is more than surprised to know what Himeragi was capable of. In the heat of the battle, Folia momentarily harnesses the power of a spirit, and uses a holy blade to finally put Beatrice down for good. Meanwhile, Himeragi gets her hand on the remote that was being used to control the artificial angels. The final battle boils down to Kojo and Canon, and he has to make sure that she returns to her normal state without facing death. He takes a vow to bring back the kindness inside of Canon before revealing his third familiar, Alma Saint Mercury. Immediately after he summons it, a two-headed dragon manifests out of his body, completely capable of withstanding Canon's attack. Kensei cannot believe that there was actually a being in this dimension that could go head to head with a higher life form like the Angel Foe. He then realizes that Kojo's third familiar is a Dimension Eater. Despite its nature, Canon is still very tough to bring down as her whole body starts to turn crimson red. Realizing that this was an indication of evil spirits taking over, Himeragi uses her Holy Spear to exorcise Canon's morphed form. This temporarily breaks the barrier surrounding her angelic form, and Kojo takes upon this chance to strike. They are successful in their efforts, and Canon is finally back to her normal form as Himeragi takes a hold of her. Kojo then looks upon a defeated Kensei, who asks if he was going to punish him. He replies that it is not under his authority to decide what becomes of him. Just then, Natsuki and Sayaka arrive with the cargo boat. Canon regains her consciousness and the Folia takes it upon herself to comfort her, revealing herself as a family member. Elsewhere, Kensei has already been apprehended and is being questioned by Yaze. He asks them why they decided to make such a dangerous weapon, one that they themselves couldn't control. Kensei doesn't say much aside from a cryptic reply where he says that anything that cannot take down the Fourth Progenitor is useless against a disaster that is yet to come. As for our heroes, Natsuki takes the responsibility of looking after Canon, and the Folia says her farewell by landing a final goodbye kiss on Kojo, stirring up jealousy between Himeragi and Sayaka. Thanks for watching part 4, all other parts will be in a pinned comment below.